the 16th of our community gatherings. We've had one or two a year over the last 8 years, or probably 7 years since we started doing these. And I have to say, I wanted to say by way of welcome that these are really one of my favorite experiences within the work of the center. I just heard a wonderful phrase about the idea of changing the thought code of a society, a technical metaphor for thinking about what it looks like to really rewire at a deep level the kinds of beliefs and values that we act from. And I think part of, as I think for all of you, part of what brings me continually back to this work, and perhaps never more than over the last couple years, is the way in which Riane Eisler's work really operates at that level of thought code, which I think is where we need to all be working in such a pragmatic and optimistic way. And so her work gives me hope, and this community gives me hope. I think all of us come together with that kind of gut level knowing about the deep rightness of what it means to organize ourselves around around caring for children, for our planet, for one another, around respecting human beings of all genders, being on the side of cultivating life. How, nothing could be more profoundly right in my mind. And I just love the opportunity to know all of you and to get to know more and more of you each year, who likewise are drawn to these sort of core understandings about what it is to be human and how we're meant to be living together on this earth. And so I just want to thank you all so much for being in this community and for inspiring me continually. It's a privilege to be part of this community for so long now, and going forward into the future. So I want to hand it over to Anne for her welcome, and then we'll hear from Riane and go forward from there.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, yeah, as you speak, I really resonate with that sense that, I mean, I just can say for myself, I'm just so deeply honored to all over the world, but particularly in the United States, who are doing the most creative, amazing world work directly from your heart center, from your place of passion. And you're hitting the ground running. You're just doing this big reality check work because we hold as visionaries a vision for what we know is possible in a partnership system, a partnership world. And so just to have that energy and that fortitude and the perseverance and the right attitude to come into the world and be fully present, to really show up, I feel very honored to be a part of that circle. And I'm always learning from you all. Even as I interact and provide you with resources and connect you with other learning opportunities. So that's my great privilege to work with both Sarah and particularly Riane, to just kind of move our work forward together as a collaborative. So looking forward in this session to hearing much more about what you all are doing and to sharing a little bit more about what CPS is doing as well. So I'll hand it over to Riane for a quick hello.
Well, it will be a quick hello because I want us to hear from our panelists, and then I want to hear from everybody who wants to chime in. I too, of course, want to welcome you. This is a really difficult time in our nation's history, and the partnership movement offers grounded hope. And you are the leaders in the partnership movement. So I want to thank you for all that you're doing, and I want to encourage you to really keep on going because, as Sarah said, this is about the thought code. And if we have the wrong thought code, then we are just trying to do something that won't work. We are reframing the way that we want to look at the world and live in it. And if we don't provide this alternative, the partnership alternative, at best we have critiques, and at worst we just have disorder and resistance and rebellion. And what we really need is not only deconstruction, but reconstruction. So I thank you, I welcome you, and onward.
Thank you, Rian. So let's have a little quick look at where we're heading together today in this precious time together. We will share just briefly a few updates from the Center for Partnership Studies, both a couple highlights from 2018 and some things to look forward to in 2019. And then we're getting into the meat of the matter and hearing from three wonderful presenters from around our community. We'll hear from Ginger Garner, Travis Petchel, and Shannon Mannon. And I know you'll be just what they're up to. Then we'll have, as time permits, we have about 15 minutes per speaker, and we'll use whatever time is not taken up with their sharing to invite comments and questions from anyone who has them. So do plan to be active in the chat box, sharing as they talk things that come up for you or that you'd like to hear more about. And then we will invite a more open sharing from around the community, folks who are here, and we have some ideas of people we know we're excited to hear from, and we'll be opening the floor. Really make a difference in 2019 and close following that. So
Sarah, this is Anne. It looks like your internet is going in and out a bit. We lost you for a few seconds there.
Okay, I'm sorry. Am I back now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. We have had some instability problems, which I thought were resolved, but let me know. And okay. Obviously, if I freeze, hopefully with a not too horrific expression forever in eternity, but feel free to just jump in and take over.
Yeah.
At any time, as you often do.
Oh, it looks like Polly is saying in the chat that I was also frozen mid-sentence, so I wonder if it's my internet, which it shouldn't be because I'm wired in, but
okay,
maybe
as am I. So we'll, fingers crossed, we'll press on. And thank you all for alerting us in the chat if from your angle things are not technically working. So in terms of updates from the center, there was the first number one. We did that too. So the first thing we want to highlight, is really in terms of highlights from the past year. I know that we are all inspired by the content of Rian Eisler's work. I want to also just say how inspiring it is to just look at the sheer activity level and stamina and passion that keeps Rian going at such a pace. This year, from just the perspective of what Rian was up to, she started her year in Chile as a keynote speaker at a 2018 Futures Congress. She was a panelist for a summit on thriving in your third act, which is a beautiful concept. In October, Rian was in Ireland receiving a Safe Ireland Leadership Award, the first the inaugural award of that organization at the Safe World Summit in Ireland, where she also gave a keynote address. She was a featured speaker at the Parliament of World Religions in November. And also in November, gave a wonderful speech at the BISC conference, a group in Lansing, Michigan, focusing on battering intervention services. And is probably currently at work on this, or has just completed being part of a guest editorial circle for Cosmos Journal's winter edition, on the theme of global citizen, global spirit, and has been on more interviews, podcasts, radio shows than any of us can keep track of. So one part of the center's work is really this, extraordinary contribution that Rian makes as a speaker and as an editor and thought leader. And so we all just want to celebrate those accomplishments. The other thing we wanted to share with you about what has really mattered to us in 2018 in terms of what we've been up to is that our webinar series this year was a departure from some things we've done in previous years, in the sense that it was organized around collaborations with really fantastic collaborators, including Gary Barker from Promundo, Julie Owens and Ron Clark, who are working in training and organizing around the area of faith communities and the role that congregations and faith leaders can play in ending domestic violence. And supporting the survivors of domestic violence, and really what that has to do with social justice, which was an important piece that Rian contributed to that conversation. And in all of these webinars, we want to point out that these were all conversations between Rian and these other people, so she's very much built in there as well. And Anne and I had the pleasure of sort of doing some of the producing work behind these. We also worked with Bree Mathers, who's on the call today, and Ashanti Branch, both of whom are doing exciting work with young people around reconceptualizing, changing the thought code around gender and gender roles. And then a wonderful webinar with Carla Goldstein of the Omega Institute's Women's Leadership Organization, Women's Leadership Center, and Jamia Wilson of Feminist Press around women and leadership. And really, of course, it was about partnership leadership, the notion of shifting our paradigm of leadership from a power over paradigm to one that really focuses on power with and power through. All of those webinars, we want to point out, are available for replay. So if you, some of you are probably here because you attended one of those and want to learn more, but if you missed one or more along the way, they are available through the CPS website, and you can find them there. We're working on gathering them even more conveniently in one spot for you, so stay tuned. We'll keep you posted about that. In terms of where we're going on the horizon, things to sort of perk your ears up for as we go into 2019. The first is there's a new website underway, and really the focus of this fairly substantial reworking of the Center for Partnership .org website is a consolidation of multiple sites, the Caring Economy site, which has been separate, the Spiritual Alliance for Intimate Violence, which has been a separate site, now will all be under one umbrella, so that everything can be sort of understood as part of the larger work of the center. And the hope in the redesign is also that it will provide all of you with real streamlined access to specific kinds of action ideas, resources, classes, and the initiatives of the center that you can participate in and take some leadership in. One of those initiatives, which is really sort of new in the way we're framing it this year, is what we're calling a Partnership Next Gen initiative. And this folds together work that Bree Mathers is doing with young people. Another one of our program alum is John Krieger, who is also doing exciting work with young people. And so that will be a place where we can sort of pull together information for everyone about work that's being done specifically with young girls and boys and young men and women around the country. And if you are doing work with young people specifically around partnership concepts or shifting the thought code around gender, please let us know. We'd love to include you in that Next Gen initiative framework. Also, what you may have noticed if you've sort of been tuning in over the last year is that Anne has been doing just a remarkable, wonderful job of pulling together our partnership community newsletter, which comes out once a month or so. Increasingly our hope and what Anne has been able to really do is to make that increasingly a co-authored newsletter, which is being co-authored by all of you, members of our community who are sharing work and articles and posts and all of that. So watch for that newsletter to continue to be increasingly co-authored by folks from all around the community, so that the diversity of the voices being heard there should just continue to exponentially increase in the coming year. We're really excited to tell you about a new online course, which we are collaborating with the Omega Institute to design and offer. And that will be coming in spring of 2019. And it's really exciting. The Omega Institute is expanding their own, they've done a wonderful job of sort of investing in a new approach to online courses and building out an expanded catalog of online courses. And we're just having a wonderful time working with them to bring forward a brand new course based on Rion's work that will be self-paced, available for anybody at any time to come into and work their way through. And we're hoping that we'll have an optional live component once or twice a year to meet with Rion as well. Are changing our story, many of you probably are familiar or have taken in the past, are Changing Our Story, Changing Our Lives course, and we've been working to transform that into a self-paced course, and we'll be launching that early in 2019. Also, and we'll talk more about this as we go forward, we're really excited about the kinds of partnership study action hubs that are forming around the country, either sort of locally at a city level, even regionally. And so you're going to hear a little bit from today about some examples of what that can look like, and want to plant the seed that this might be the year to sort of think of yourself as a hub leader of your own local area, and we can talk about what that might look like. And then finally, we want to just share with you that we don't have specific dates yet, but there is a new Rion Eisler book coming out in 2019. Rion, could you say just I don't have the title yet at the tip of my tongue. Can you share the title? And
of course, it's called Nurturing Our Humanity, and the subtitle is quite a mouthful. It is how domination and partnership shape our brains, lives, and future. And it's coming out with Oxford University Press. I have a co-author for this book. I've been working on it now for 10 years, but 3 years ago, I decided that it would be really good to have Professor Douglas Fry, who is an anthropologist at the University of Alabama, Dean of Anthropology, Chair of Anthropology there, and probably the world's leading expert on foraging societies. Which are, of course, the kinds of societies that we lived in first as hominins and then as humans for millennia. And his work and that of his colleagues dispels the mythology that maintains domination systems propagated by social biologists and by many cultural so-called evolutionary psychologists, that, of course, domination systems are rooted in our experiences there, whereas in fact, he calls the foraging societies of our past the original partnership societies, and has the data to prove it. So that is, of course, just one aspect of the book, but it's an exciting book, and I wish I could give you a date, but I don't think it's going to be immediately in, probably the second half. Sometime, I would imagine, the fall. And I'm very, very excited about it.
Thank you so much, Rian. And so we'll keep everyone posted, of course, as that date gets firmed up. It's exciting to have new reading to do. So let's turn now to our presenters for today. We want to begin with by welcoming Ginger Garner. Ginger is in North Carolina. She started wowing us as a student in our, I think it was the Caring Economy Leadership Program was probably the first time we met Ginger. She's an educator, an author, a physical therapist, and this last year, she also put her hat in the ring, as they say, as a candidate for state senate in North Carolina. And we really wanted to invite her here to share with us some of what she learned in that process, and perhaps how partnership informed that, and what that journey was about for you, Ginger. So welcome, Ginger. I'm going to stop sharing my slides so we can see you bigger. And perhaps we can even make you the spotlight video. There we go. So welcome, Ginger.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Anne, and thanks to Rian. A big thank you to Rian, because without you, I wouldn't be sitting here talking right now about all of this. There's a lot to say over the past 9 months, because it was kind of a gestation, it felt like. I'm a mom of 3, and it certainly felt equally as difficult as the whole birth process. What drove me to run is pretty simple, actually. I started out in healthcare. Over a 20-year period, I practiced as a physical therapist, finishing up doctoral work also, focusing on maternal health and outcomes, focusing on people in chronic pain. So that's one arm of why I ran, was the healthcare piece. The other piece was education. Because a few years in, I realized that I could see patients one at a time, all day long, the rest of my life, and I still wouldn't be able to make the impact that I wanted. So I often share this story. It feels a lot like, and you may have heard this story before, a person goes down to the river and stands at the water's edge and looks upstream and begins to see bodies floating down the river. For me, that's what it was like working in healthcare, pulling bodies out of the river every day. Women who came in, women who had birth trauma, who had trauma from the system, not necessarily their partners, violence from the healthcare system, neglect and carelessness from the healthcare system, who had been told that they were broken. And by the time they got to me, as you well know, we have a massive opioid problem on our hands in the United States. They were often addicted to opioids. They were often losing their jobs, losing their relationships, not able to hold things together. Now, during the course of that time, I was also having my own 3 sons and going through the same system and experiencing it. So I'm standing by the river. I'm pulling these moms and sometimes men too out of the river, helping them out of their chronic pain. And then I decide I can't do it just by being a healthcare provider. I need to actually go into education. So I figured, well, I need to change the way medical education is being taught because we're missing things. Something is missing. So I started writing continuing education. That's where the beginning of my first book started. Was to use integrative medicine and functional medicine as a real way to affect pain, and it was working, but it wasn't enough. There's all that little nagging feeling of this, it's not enough, I can do more. So then I began pulling bodies out of the water in the field of education, and you see all of the weaknesses that happen there, the gaps. My oldest son was born and was diagnosed. It took several years to get there, but he's on the autism spectrum. So then I wrestled with the school system, with the healthcare system, waiting for years to get a diagnosis, waiting for years, fighting for years to get an IEP, to get him the services that he needs. So finally, and holding these like giant anvils of healthcare and education and realizing they had cracks, and crevices all in them, I put that weight down and I put the bodies down and I walked up the river to see who was throwing the bodies in the river. And I realized that many of the issues that we have are based on policy issues, missing policy, incorrect policy, gaps in policy. But I do believe with all my heart that the driver of these problems rests in inequality, of putting all the eggs in our basket of a dominator model, like I learned when I picked up Ann Crittenden's book a long time ago, The Price of Motherhood. And if you can raise kids, you can manage anything. And then I picked up Rian's books after that, which led me to the Caring Economics Leadership Program about 6-7 years ago. And ever since then, the framework of everything that I do, whether it's in healthcare, education, or getting into the Senate race, has been based on changing and talking to people about changing from that dominator to what should be a fluid, compassionate continuum towards partnership. So that's when I decided, if I'm going to make a change, I can stay in healthcare, I can stay in education, but I can also run for state senate at the same time. So that's when I decided to do that. That's the fuel, behind the fire. And I'm also from North Carolina. And if you know anything about politics in North Carolina, you'll know we need a lot of help down here. And that's also was another very easy way, to jump in and try to help out, because there's so much to be done. But since then, and not just running for Senate, but also in publishing my first book, the foundations of that were built on Rian's theory and her work. I also had the good fortune of penning a book chapter that was on how relationship affects creativity in healthcare, and it talked about partnership relationship there. So I feel fortunate to be able to continue to work. Obviously in November, our campaign came up short. And we, in many areas in North Carolina, have gerrymandering to thank for that. So we have still lots more work to do, something that I won't, stop doing. But, my mantra is choosing what's right over choosing what's convenient. and to keep doing all the good I can and not stop doing that. I don't want to talk for too long, so I do want to open up the floor if anybody does have any questions or comments. I will say that one thing that I learned along the way in running the campaign was the concerns that I had were constantly validated in the community. I heard stories of parents just like me whose children don't have access to services, and worse, they may not even know what services they have a right to get. I heard women talk about birth trauma and neglect. We know that women's health is grossly neglected in the healthcare system. I heard stories all about the destruction and violence against our environment. I live on an island off the coast of North Carolina, a little place called Emerald Isle, where we are on the cusp of seismic blasting and offshore drilling. And while that was very, very important for the majority of the constituents that I spoke to, yet they still chose to vote in the other direction. Maybe out of thinking it's not going to happen. We don't know where the disconnect is. But the patterns of violence against ourselves, against, that's gender-based, that's race-based, I have a lot of hope that that can change. But those are some of the things that I learned along the way, that people do want that change, but they often don't understand how the process can be manifested in order to arrive at that change. And many people feel like their voice doesn't matter and their voice doesn't count. So I just want to say before I stop talking is, to everybody that's on the call, to everyone listening, you can affect change. Maybe you'll pick up and run for the school board next time, or maybe you will just learn more about caring economics and how you can apply it in your micro universe. But everybody has the power to affect change. So don't ever lose hope.
That's lovely. Thank you so much, Ginger. I'm jumping in, but I hope others will also jump in. First of all, brava. You are really a wonderful role model. And yes, our voices make a difference. Just changing the conversation makes a huge difference. And we must present the partnership alternative. And of course, having a platform as a candidate is an excellent place. So I hope that, inspired by Ginger, many of you, or at least some of you, will consider running for some kind of office. Start with the low-hanging fruit. As she said, maybe a school board, maybe some kind of another thing. Why not for state assembly or state senate? The more our voices are heard, the more the paradigm changes. So thank you and bless you and keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you. You're definitely an inspiration to do that. And you wouldn't believe, or maybe you would believe, how many times I've gotten to share your story while I'm sharing my story in order to be able to introduce these concepts. And if I could add one more thing, I was absolutely amazed when I got to talk to state leaders, sometimes national leaders, and when we can take 3 steps back, like you've already done the work for us, and we can say, this is just a dominator model issue, and we can easily shift the conversation. The door opens much wider and more easily when we have that conversation than if we try to kind of nitpick at things as if they're from isolated contexts, because they're not. It's all driven by the same problem. So I'm hopeful that I'll be able to carry this conversation continually to, stair step larger levels. Oh, I forgot to mention, I just got to speak to the UN Women for our state chapter recently. And that was very inspiring also. I learned a lot from the people there. So just continue to take that message out wherever you are, right?
Thank you so much, Ginger, for sharing what you already have. I know that there's little conversation forming in the chat, so we'll let you attend to that, and okay. with all of our thanks. And let me see if I can find out. There we go. Go back to here. I want to introduce you all next to Travis. Travis is based in Oregon, Portland?
Portland area, yeah.
Portland area. And is a graduate of several of our classes, I think, and more than just one. And is a change agent and activist. Has his fingers in a lot of things, I think, but has recently started a project called Partnership Living in Portland. Is that the right?
Partnership Living Portland, yeah.
Partnership Living Portland. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to invite Travis to come and talk with us about sort of how that has come together and his sources of inspiration and his where that's heading. And we think it's a possible model that many of you may want to sort of emulate in your own localities. So Travis, let me put the spotlight on you here. Right. There we go.
It's
welcome.
Portland, Oregon. Yeah, Portland, Oregon.
Yeah. You're seeing in the chat. Yes. Yeah. Portland, Oregon.
For sure. So yeah, hello everyone. Thanks for attending and thanks for having me here. Rian, Sarah, and Ann, thanks for inviting me to speak. Yeah, I'm just excited to be here and connect with you all and share a little bit about more of what I'm doing. So I've been a dedicated change worker for about almost 10 years now. I figured I'd just start from kind of where I started and kind of lead up to kind of what brought me to what I'm working on today and why. I started off getting my environmental science degree in like 2008. Then I moved down to Reno and I got a job with the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. It's a tribal government in Reno area, and worked in their air quality program. And then slowly started shifting it over to more of a sustainability focus, which was really that's where I started, is in sustainability. That was kind of like my main goal at the time, was like, we need to build a sustainable world. And that's kind of where my analysis was at the time. And during that time, I was doing more volunteer work, started to really kind of continue to delve deeper and deeper into like how our culture works, how, what are the root causes of the problems that we see today that are so intractable, that are so pervasive. How do we work for world peace, things like that. And so I kept going deeper and deeper and trying to find the more fundamental root causes. Eventually I decided I wanted to leave my job and try to start something on my own, and it would give me a little bit more freedom to speak my mind, and also allow me to maybe make a bigger impact. And so I tried to start a business that was focused on helping people vote with their money, and is comprehensive and as effective a way as possible. That was my goal. And by creating like a products and service scoring system and all kinds of stuff that would help people do that. I spent about 7 months working on it. Then I decided that it was about time to, I was just realizing that like, I don't quite know enough about, I'm trying to elevate myself as a leader before I kind of have done even a deeper analysis. Like I'm very green with a lot of some of the deeper understanding. So I kind of decided to shut that down and just take more time to really study deeper and learn more about systems of oppression. So that was what my focus really started. That was the focus I started really going into, studying different things. And then once I got to patriarchy, once I started really looking into patriarchy, that really kind of rocked my world. And I was reading like radical feminist literature around that. And I started having some really painful realizations. And I grew up in a pretty partnership oriented household, where I was raised primarily by my dad. And he, taught me to, hug and cry and feel my feelings and talk about it, and things that I didn't know were that different from the culture at the time. But one thing that wasn't really talked about in our household, and that I didn't get a lot of, help around and like sharing of wisdom around, was around sexuality. and I was exposed early on to pornography, and that was yeah, I didn't know how different, I didn't know what that was at the time, but I quickly became, very interested in that and eventually kind of addicted to that. And, that caused some real problems. And I've become a really pretty strong critic against mainstream pornography, the patriarchal aspects within it, the exploitation and things like that. So in having that happen, I kind of sent me into those realizations and things kind of sent me into kind of a depression. I pulled back from change work, isolated myself for quite a while, and just was kind of doing a lot of personal work, soul searching, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And it was actually during that time that I read The Chalice and the Blade for the first time. And that was kind of a light at the time. One thing I really loved was how it talks about bringing men and women back together. And it just had a very unifying kind of feel to it. And, and the analysis was trying to help build something where we were building an equitable society where everyone's valued. And I just spoke to me very strongly. Yeah, so I read that, and then eventually I kind of reemerged, and I tried to reconnect with activism and looking into intentional communities where I wanted to live. I was just finding that I wasn't really fitting in as well as I was hoping, and just having a hard time finding the place that I fit. Eventually I decided to kind of stop searching so much. Still searching, but trying to do more to try and organize around my own unique perspectives, because I have, I think, some unique ideas and things that I can bring to the table that I think could be very helpful, and just some new conversations to have that I feel sometimes we aren't having. So that kind of brought me to why I wanted to start Partnership Living Portland. So I started that just a few months ago. It's just a meetup group online, and I started it for a couple reasons. The first one being that I just wanted to help people I just wanted to put the Chalice and the Blade out there a little bit more, and some of these concepts out there, like the partnership domination continuum, which I think is a super powerful concept for people to understand, and to help people understand that this hidden history that has been, that I've never heard of until I read that book, So to help people get access to that, and then also to help connect people with their deep ancestry, especially I feel a lot of white people, I feel very disconnected from my ancestry, especially from very far away, a long time ago. But just everyone, learning more about when you go back far enough, we're all so related, and we all come from the same peoples, going back as far as you want to go. And then when you look, for me, it was really, really inspiring to realize that I come from, I have indigenous roots from way back. And not only that, but those indigenous roots were very likely very peaceful, equitable, and nature reverent, which that's not the story that we're taught about our prehistory. Our prehistory was violent, males were always dominant, stuff like that. And it just doesn't seem to be the case at all. And I'm really excited to share that with people. The other thing was I really wanted to help just build community around holistically healthy living, and towards not just critiquing something, but towards what are we building for? What are we building towards? And I think a partnership-oriented society, that's a great beginning framework to start that conversation. And I also love the idea of really focusing on how we live, because I think that's how that's the core, the foundation from what you can build a lot of change work off of. And that I think oftentimes that conversation isn't happening as much as I would have liked as I was engaging with activism. It just felt, there just wasn't very much of a conversation. So I wanted to try and start that conversation a little bit more. Also, and so right now what I'm trying to do is I've started a Chalice and the Blade reading group. It's the second one that I've done. So that's going well. Not too many people in it right now, but we're just wrapping that one up. I'm also trying to do a monthly event every month. Last month we screened The Story of Stuff, which I think is just a fantastic 20-minute film about how our economy works. It's really accessible, and just it explains it in a really quick, succinct way. I love their videos; they're great. And then another event we did, I did a presentation on, kind of created an alternative history of the world, where I incorporated a lot of the Chalice and the Blade into that, and tried to create like a timeline from like the beginning of the universe to now. You know, how do we come to be where we are today? And having it be a much more accurate, and again, the best job that I could do at that time, but just trying to create a greater picture, and see how we're all so interconnected. So that's kind of where I've been starting. Right now, I'm focusing heavily on trying to create a holistic health practice. So I want to be a holistic health coach. And so I've been working on that. And what I'm trying to do with that is trying to rebrand activism a little bit as like a health modality, because I think ultimately like activists are kind of like planetary health workers. It's just, I think it'd be cool to look at them like that. I think maybe people would take it more seriously. Maybe it wouldn't, I don't know. I think it might help. And so with my idea around holistic health, I think oftentimes when we think of holistic health, it's just, we think of the personal, like mind, body, spirit. But oftentimes the community and our planetary health is left out of that conversation. And I think that's to our detriment. I think by incorporating all of that, that's how we can really have people living lives that everything they're doing is integrated into making themselves healthier, our communities healthier, and the planet. So anyway, so I'm excited about that. I'm working on that. Got a couple events coming up for the Partnership Living Portland in January, February. I'm going to screen the misrepresentation and then also the mask you live in, which I think both of those videos are just fantastic at explaining how we've been kind of brought into our gender roles, in the society, like how we were kind of indoctrinated, and then also how we can kind of like work to shift that and find, a greater balance of how people interact with how they think of themselves from a gender perspective. So yeah, and so I guess to conclude, I just wanted to say, if anybody's in Portland area and you want to connect, feel free to contact me. I love to talk with people about this stuff and connect. Or if you want to come to an event, that would be awesome as well. Again, it's the Partnership Living Portland. It's just a meetup.com group, so you can search for it on there. And then I'm also interested in finding if anybody's living in Portland area. If you want to be a co-organizer, that's something that I'd love to find more people to add new events and stuff like that, have more diversity and have more more people, and it'd be more exciting to have more people involved in that. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you all again for listening, and thanks for having me. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. So,
well, I'm going to jump in and say bravo, because I thank you so much for sharing your story and your past. Because frankly, it's a past that many people can, I think, relate to. The search, and then having a larger frame, and having a frame for really healing ourselves, healing society, healing the planet. And I love this idea of planetary health workers. Somebody else wrote that down in the chat box. And I think that your plans to continue with this are, as Sarah said, are what you've done and what you are planning to do are excellent models. And I really hope and expect that others on this webinar will follow suit, and perhaps also meet with you, not only to learn more, but also to share with you what they're doing. So onward. And thank you so much.
Yeah.
Travis, this is Anne. I just want to say thank you real quick for all the amazing work you're doing, and for being a real partnership leader just in modeling what you're doing in community, and just being so forthright with your own process of discovery, because that's what, as planetary health workers, all of us can do, is just continue to educate ourselves, right? I mean, educate ourselves at the highest level of understanding systems, but also how that interfaces with what we really want to do to be that health worker for the planet and for people. And there's a great comment here in the chat by Sandy Hart, who runs one of the women's programs for the Compassion International. And she says, "Thank you, Travis, for embodying the divine masculine and feminine." So I want to second that as well. That's pretty cool. And there's lots of great comments in the chat from people. And you can, if you can take a look at some of those, Travis, and you might be able to answer them. And I will put again in the chat the link to the blog post that we did on Travis's work, where there's some links to to his meetup group and other pieces. So definitely get in touch with him.
And may I just say one thing? If you are planning to do your alternate history of the world again, maybe, Anne, you can put in a link to my book on education called Tomorrow's Children. If you haven't read it, it starts with cosmic evolution, biological evolution, and then goes into cultural evolution. So you might get some ideas from there.
Great.
You could put in a link to Tomorrow's Children. It's available on Amazon as, online.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
And a final thanks from me, Travis. It's really great to hear your story and about what you're up to. I'm going to let the rest of the conversation on that unfold on the chat and move us on. There's never enough time. Move us on.
All right.
Hear from Shannon, who knows a lot about short amounts of time. And Shannon, we're going to just jump back into our slides here as we, let's see, let me get to the one we want. Whoops. So Shannon is not in New York. She's in Philadelphia. I don't know why I had you in New York in my head. Anne corrected it, but then I forgot to use the corrected version. It's a whole thing. So I apologize. Shannon comes to us is joining us from Philadelphia. She is an interviewer, media maker, conversation leader. I'm sure many more words would be appropriate as well. And we'll let her help us with that. And she's the founder of a business called 3 Minute Storyteller. And welcome, Shannon. We look forward to hearing about your work, and it's exciting to be introduced to it. I know everyone will enjoy it. So let me just go ahead to your slide. Is that where we
if you want to start, I won't go to the slide just yet. That doesn't.
Okay. Should we just make you big?
Make me big.
You're ready. Oh, wait, it didn't work. Oh, maybe I need to stop share. There we go. And then make you big.
Woohoo. Thanks so much, Sarah. All right. Is that good?
Yes.
Hey. Hi. Yeah. Hi, everybody. It's so good to be here. When I was thinking about this call, I feel like it's a big family reunion. Like this is my adopted family. So like many of you, when I first discovered Rianne's work, which admittedly it was only about a year ago. So I feel like I'm probably like the newbie on the call. But it changed everything. I read the Chalice and the Blade, and it was a revelation for me. It was so validating on a cellular level, because I think in my bones and somewhere deep inside my muscle memory, I knew it was true. So everything that Rianne laid out with the framework and the language and the history that I didn't know, it literally transformed me from the inside out. And I feel like has been compelling me ever since. So I thank Rianne, and I thank Sarah and Anne and the whole team for the work that you do. And also to all of this community, this incredible community who I've seen in the chat, all have amazing stories of your own. I think any one of us could be a panelist up here. So I'm just honored to have the opportunity to share with all of you today. So I am the founder of 3 Minute Storyteller. That's a social enterprise. And we have brief, inspiring storytelling at our heart. We believe that injecting stories ignites goodness, especially when there's so much darkness that dominates our news and our media cycles. And by putting stories of goodness, it can ignite social change. And that when we practice listening and really truly being present with each other, the sacred current that connects every single one of us is strengthened. we believe that stories open our imaginations. And when we open our imagination, that's the beginning of all real change and all social change. So my husband, Mike, and I started 3-Minute Storyteller in about 2015. And it started as a side project, a heart project, when we both had 2 full-time jobs and 3 children and the whole thing. And, you know, Mike says he started it out of a midlife crisis, but I would call that a spiritual awakening, you know. And he said that instead of buying a sports car, we bought a camera. So that was the midlife crisis. My career had been spent in international and community development, but I always found a way to sneak in storytelling and listening and interviewing and conversation work, even when it necessarily didn't really fit into my job. It's just what I love to do because it made me feel like I came alive. And when I heard someone's story and we connected in that one-on-one level, I always fell in love with that person. And I knew that if I could figure out a way for more of us to hear each other's stories, we would all fall in love with each other. Because I really believe no matter who you are and where you come from, your story is something, if you're sharing it from a vulnerable, truth, heart-centered place, we will all find our common humanity. And there's no one that's above that or below that. So it's really, this work now is a gift for me. I took that like leap of faith, kind of like Travis and Ginger, to do this work full time now, and getting to amplify and create and share and cultivate stories with a really engaged community here at 3-Minute Storyteller, who are also longing for truth and beauty, and to engage in the conversation of activating our imaginations is it's the privilege of my life. So what we do at 3-Minute Storyteller is we profile movement makers who are transforming our world. And I'm going to go ahead and put up in the chat the links to all of our like social media and platforms where you can find us on the website and whatever social media channel you choose. It'll be great if you could follow us and share these stories with your network if it resonates with you. The reason I'm asking is because these stories really showcase partnership leaders in a very wide variety of spectrums, from the arts to the sciences, activism, spiritual leaders, entrepreneurs, business leaders. And we want your support, and we need help, honestly, getting these stories out into the world so that they can ignite and activate imagination and change. A little bit about our process and how it works. We film and record intimate and expansive conversations one-on-one, face-to-face. So we don't do it over Zoom. We've tried, and we didn't love the quality of it and the intimacy of it. Although it feels very intimate for these types of things, I think it doesn't translate as well in a lived, like, web-based world. So then we edit the conversations, which usually run between an hour, 40 minutes to an hour. We edit them down into 3 minutes, which is like crazy and very difficult, but also really a fun challenge. And then we share those 3 minutes, the video out across social media. And of course, it's just a bite size of this person's story. And it's really just to kind of capitulate to our very limited attention spans and the platforms on social media. But we do share a full audio version of the conversation on our website. And we will be creating a podcast called For the Love of Conversation later this winter. So that is something where our audience kept asking, we want to hear the full story. So we have started to make that available for people. And our third piece of content with each story is an essay that Mike or I write, depending on who conducted the interview, giving context, background, history, and our personal reflection on why this person spoke to us and why their story we feel is important. So Sarah, would it be possible to share the first slide? I just thought it would be a little bit easier than me talking so much, giving you a sense of who some of our storytellers are and what you can find on our site. We've spoken to about 80 different storytellers, but many of them are great luminaries who I think many of you are familiar with. So this is a diverse array of them. And I hopefully you all can see that. But we also have spoken to many, many, many who are not well known. And actually that's a source of real importance for us, is that we've purposely seek out marginalized voices, voices that have been pushed to the side so that we can amplify new stories. I love finding stories that have been intentionally purged from the Western canon because they didn't fit a narrative of domination and unworthiness and scarcity that, you know, our culture has sort of gravitated towards. So that concept of pulling out lost stories from history has been a real theme actually since reading Rianne's work. That has taken hold of my imagination and is something that is really coming through the work big and strong lately. So also, I wanted to give you a sense of who one of our partnership leaders are. So we've got a video snippet that we're going to try. We're going to keep our fingers crossed, and we're going to try to get a video working. So in a sec, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind, we'll give that a shot. I just want to introduce this video to you. It's just a 30-second snippet just to kind of give you a taste of what our conversations feel like. It's a woman who's named Natalie Molina Nino. She's a entrepreneur and an author, and she's fabulous. She's just doing absolutely transformative work on a global level, funding. She's a kind of like a venture capitalist, funding social impact investor, funding women's programs that are putting money and power in the pockets of a huge array of women. And what Natalie talks about in this video, because the industries that she's involved in are tech and finance, and those typically have been very male dominated. So she says, not only was I often the only woman in the room, but I was often the only Latina in the entire building. And she's got a really powerful message for us about how to be an authentic woman leader. So let's give it a shot, Sarah.
Okay, here we go.
Thanks.
I'm gonna, I think it might, so let me see, is that full screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
But the voice is not on. We need audio.
Multicultural, right? We know how to function and survive in a world where you have.
I think we just need to start it over. Is it just, sorry, if you don't mind. Oh.
So say that again.
Oh, the sound didn't kick on until about halfway through the video. Could we try one more time?
Yeah, let's do that.
Thanks, Sarah.
Sure. I think I'm gonna just start a fresh share.
Okay. I'm really putting Sarah on the spot here. Thank you.
Back to it. Oh no, where did it go? Nope, that's not it. Nope. I lost it. I had it in my doc. I think we're gonna just skip it. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
We can send the link to everybody in our follow-up email.
That's totally fine. I'm totally prepared for that. Thank you for trying, Sarah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's on our Instagram. You can actually see the video there. But what Natalie said was, corporate America wasn't built for women to thrive, but since it wasn't built, an environment like corporate America wasn't built for women to thrive, we've been able to harness a unique set of skills, perception, collaboration, a unique sensitivity, intuition, and those unique skill sets were all designed because we've had to learn how to thrive in an environment not built for us. And she relates that to her personal story as a Latina who lives in America but has Colombian and Ecuadorian parents. She never felt like she belonged in America, but then would go home to South America and feel like she didn't belong there either. And she said, I could have used the fact that I was multicultural to feel like I don't belong anywhere. Instead, I think I belong everywhere. And she wants us to understand as women that we get these messages to be more masculine, put on our big shoulder pads in the 80s or our tailored pantsuits today, or to become more formidable in our executive presence, or to use more assertive language. And these often are helpful, but often are just encouraging us to become more masculine, because that's the power or the leadership paradigm that we know. And she says we shouldn't try to stay in our lanes, but should understand that our collective oppression can also be our collective superpower by igniting what makes us uniquely female, and these skills of intuition and perception and sensitivity can be our power source, as well as our, as our standing in our own power. So it was a cool story. So just kind of moving along quickly here. I don't want to take up too much time, but I think what the stage we're in terms of 3-minute storyteller is something that I wonder if it resonates with many of you. Cultivating a lot of partnerships, and the other version of the word partnerships, networks, collaborations, models of connection that feel really ripe and energized at this moment in history. So we've found partners with groups like the Network for Grateful Living, Encore.org, which is about finding your second and third act in life, the National Conversation Project. There's all these wonderful, wonderful currents of love and connection who are just looking to link arms and link our networks. And it's just such a new, refreshing model of power and model of connection and collaboration that I think, again, speaks so beautifully to Rianne's work. And it's really been exciting to be connected into that. And I draw a lot from that. When we first started 3-Minute Storyteller, I think we were chasing this idea of what it meant to live an authentic life. How do you live a life that's calling to you? First of all, what does it mean to have a calling? And is that a thing? And how do you even discover that? And then what about the fact that you've got to raise your kids and pay your bills? And what about the fact that it takes a lot of courage to try to do something new that's out of the mold? So we started talking to people that we thought exemplified how to do that really well. But then after the 2016 presidential election, so much shifted in America. And we felt like our conversations had to shift too. And I noticed that our community was more aligned in one perspective. And I was really interested in not talking to the choir and not being in a bubble. I really wanted to, now that we sort of had ripped off this collective Band-Aid of our country, and we'd seen the shadow, which was always there, but was now really rising to the surface, all this racism and sexism and ageism and homophobia, how can we use stories to reach across the divide? How can we use stories to connect us to what is common in our humanity? How can we not believe this message we're being fed, that we're all really polarized and we're all really different and we all have different values? Because I reject all of that. So we're experimenting with lots of new things right now. We're actually using Zoom as a technology to have conversation dialogue circles internationally, really, although most of our audience is American. We welcome and we do actually have a strong number of international folks joining to kind of not solve or fix or change minds, but just to have conversations about our personal experiences. And again, try to connect across our shared humanity. So we send out a monthly newsletter around a certain theme. We usually have a Zoom conversation around this theme. I would encourage any of you, if you have, I'm sure you all have stories that we could tell and we could help amplify. So please send them to me. Again, I'm based outside of Philadelphia. So since we do these in person, oftentimes we catch someone when they're in New York or DC or somewhere on the East Coast, and I can travel there easily. But that is kind of one limitation that we have currently. So I guess that's enough. But that's a little bit about what we do. And again, look forward to hearing all your feedback and connections and stories. Thank you.
I'll jump in again and thank you. I love your idea of, the fact is that people do have a very short attention span, at least certainly if you want to reach young people at this point, you have to start with something that's sort of a little nugget. And that's what you're doing. And I love the positive messaging that you're putting out. And that you're, as you said, really highlighting people who are not well known, who are marginalized. Those are voices that need to be heard. So I'm delighted that you're doing this, and onward.
Thank you. Thanks.
Hi, this is Anne. Shannon, thank you so much for sharing your work with our group. And I would highly recommend just to go visit the website there. When I first saw the 3-Minute Storyteller website, there was about a month ago, 2 months ago, there was a feature about Rebecca Treister, who some of you might know has written this great book on, women's collective rage, and starting to talk about how that's real. And she was somebody I was interested in, and I thought that my first thought was, wow, this 3-Minute Storyteller is a partnership site. It's partnership work, just like Shannon has shared with us. And so all the work that 3-Minute Storyteller is doing, and all the work that we're doing collectively in interfacing with media, and media is just such a great way to get our stories out there, and however we do it. And one of my hopes is that Shannon will have a chance to interview Rian live at some point, if Rian is on the East Coast. And we hope that can happen at some point. It'd be fantastic. But I just feel so privileged and lucky that Shannon and 3-Minute Storyteller are part of our community, and that we can connect and interface and cross-pollinate and just get those partnership stories out there to the widest possible community. Thank you, Shannon.
Thanks, Anne.
And Shannon, I would would like to suggest that you feature some of our partnership leaders who are on the East Coast, because some of them are. And that would be wonderful to really do that if you feel like highlighting them. And you can, and thank you, Anne, for discovering Shannon, now that I know how all this came to pass. I have to say, I'm going to have to leave at 12:29 sharp. So let's move forward as quickly as we can.
Yes, let's do. I think what we'd like to do is share. Well, first, let me add my thanks to Shannon. It's really lovely to meet you almost in person, at least seeing faces. And I look forward to many more opportunities to think about ways to bring a partnership series, or something to light that sort of, it's already there, but I think bringing forward that underlying connectivity around partnership might be something that would be of great mutual and collective benefit. So I'm picking up on what's happening in the chat, which I think is leading in that direction as well. Great. I want to just quickly go back to our slide deck one last time and just share with you a couple of calls to action. Let's see. There we go. We sort of had, three areas we were thinking about. And the first is really inviting all of you to write, and of course, other forms of media making, are equally important. But as we talked about earlier, we're really wanting our partnership news to have a real co-authored flavor, and many of you on the call today have submitted in the last 12 months something that's been part of that newsletter. I know all of us as readers have been enriched by that. So, and as we heard from our presenters, that we all have the sense that every one of us is equally well positioned to be a presenter, a blog author, an article writer, a storyteller. So please watch for those calls for submission that come from Anne, and we're working on a set of themes to organize ourselves around in 2019, and she'll let us know what those are, and perhaps they'll spark your creative imagination as we go forward. Another outlet for your writing work is the Interdisciplinary Journal for Partnership Studies, which is an open source online scholarly journal based at the University of Minnesota, and is a wonderful font of resources from all different discipline areas from all over the world. It is read by people all over the world. On their website, they have clear explanation of how to submit an article. It is a peer-reviewed journal, so this is for folks who want perhaps a more scholarly credit, but they also incorporate art, and they also incorporate sort of more of a storytelling, anecdotal essays. So you don't have to be an academic to publish in that journal. And it's another way to amplify all of our voices for partnership. And of course, to think about, we always have said in our classes that, as Rian says, that cultural transformation, that there's no right place to begin. It is everywhere. I mean, the culture is the water we're swimming in, and so there's no right or wrong place except for what you're called to do and where you already are. And so for you, if that's your local paper, using the language of domination and partnership in op-eds, in articles, again, just helping to amplify and expand the normalcy of just using this language to talk about that continuum. In terms of the second area is just think in terms of connection. Maybe think about becoming a study action hub in your locality, alone or with others. Starting book groups. Sacred Pleasure makes a wonderful book group text, as of course does Chalice and the Blade, as does Real Wealth of Nations, as will the new book coming out this year. Take it upon yourself to be an educator, an informal or formal educator within your community, forging connections with other organizations and groups, connections across diverse communities. And, Shannon's example of doing that through story is such a powerful one. We really all, I think, want our partnership community to be as diverse as human beings are, and to really invite conversation across whatever barriers are up for us or in our culture. And then, of course, we always want to let you know how much we appreciate those of you who are already caring sustainers of the Center for Partnership Studies. We are a small group doing big work, and you all, through all you do, make the group bigger and mightier, and it does take financial resources as well to make all of what we do possible.
I want to jump in here because, we have a group of people who are donating like $20 a month, and that really makes a difference. So it's not a huge amount, and it's an investment, isn't it, in all of us. So please consider that. And I also wanted to add about the journal, there is a section called Community Voices. And even though we would like the format and the presentation to also, it is for both scholars and practitioners, the journal. So don't feel, put off by the quote scholar item. But we really do need your support. And I wanted to ask all of you also, please share the newsletter with your network, with your entire network, in whatever way that you can do it. Please really write op-eds, change the language, because as evolutionary psychologists tell us, language categories like right, left, religious, secular, Eastern, Western, they channel our thinking and they fragment our thinking. They don't talk about gender, they don't talk about childhood, they don't include the whole of our lives nor the whole of our world. So really use the new language, start talking about hierarchies of actualization rather than hierarchies of domination. That's a good hook. So forgive me for jumping in, but since I have to leave, I have to take my grandson, who is a senior in high school, for a final. And he has to be at school at 1 o'clock. So I'm going to have to leave you. I am so glad we have the chat box because I was hoping that we would have more voices, but somehow the time didn't allow for it. But at least we had the chat box sharing. So thank you, bless you, and I'm going to leave. Okay?
Thank you, Rian.
And onward.
Onward. Let me come back to gallery view here, and I think we will go ahead and stop Rian's video just so we're distracted by empty chairs. So let me just close by saying we had a closing slide with a big image of the word gratitude, and I think there's no better place to land for all of us in this gathering than and just taking a moment to again express our gratitude to each of our presenters, to Ginger, Travis, and Shannon for all of your work in the world and for sharing a little bit about it with us today. It's just each one of us inspires the other, and I love seeing all of the resonance and interconnections and networking happening in the chat. That's exactly as it should be. And so thank all of you who are not pictured on the screen for being such dynamic, active chatters, and for sharing links and sharing what you're up to. I think, each time we think we should just do it longer or more often. And of course, whatever we do could never be enough because there's so much goodness in this community, in this family, as Shannon says, to share. And then I just want to close by expressing my gratitude to Anne for another year of extraordinary work and all that you do to really make community feel real and really do the connecting work that is behind and underneath and sort of so often, as we all know, unsung work that really makes this that really makes this real. And so it's a joy and pleasure to work with you.
Thank you, Sarah. Likewise.
I'll let you have the last word today.
I just thank you so much. And as I said earlier, it's a huge privilege for me to connect with everyone around the world who are doing amazing leadership work. My mind is just blown whenever I talk to people, and it's really fun to get to meet with some of you in person when I have the chance to do that. And I just want to say that I will be sending out a follow-up email with links to all these bits and pieces we've been talking about, particularly the work of our 3 presenters. And if there are people that you have connected with on the chat or that you would like to connect with by email, please email me and let me know that you want to connect with someone. We will have copies of the chat available for you. So you'll be able to see that conversation along with the full session video in the follow-up email and links to all these bits and pieces. So I'm definitely here to provide resources for you so we can continue to cross-pollinate in the powerful partnership way that we are. So thank you.
Be well, everyone.
Take care. Have great holidays as well. Thank you to all of our program graduates who've attended today too and have connected. Thank you.
Just give another moment for final comments that people like to make. They roll out. And farewell.
Thanks, everyone. Bye now.